In a world where everyone knows everything. Yeah, right. One dad stands below everyone and yells, "I know nothing."
Please welcome.
This is the Dad Who Knows Nothing podcast.
All right, so this is the Dad Who Knows Nothing podcast. I'm very excited today to have Alex Oliveira. He is a transformative leader of multiple successful companies, originally born in Brazil, and he's helped companies advance their brands by executing interactive marketing campaigns for over 12 years. Some big brands like Ford, Allstate, and he got to a point where he did that, and then he went the entrepreneurial route and wanted to share his talent and his tools for digital marketing and lead generation and all of those things with his clients. So very excited to have you with us today, Alex. Thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time.
Absolutely, Dana. I'm excited to be here. Definitely, I think we share a similar audience. So I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah. So you have a podcast as well. It's the Dad-Preneur podcast, right?
The Dad-Preneur podcast.
All right. How's that been going? How long have you had that?
It's good. It's been going for a little over 2 years. I had about a year in 2015 and 16 where I did it for about a year. And then I stopped for like 3. And then 2019, I picked up again. And it's just a form of media that from the beginning appealed to me. I never really got into YouTube, even as a marketer, never really enjoyed that level of nonsense that you find on YouTube. And with podcasts, I just find that, you know, whatever topic or niche you're looking for, whatever your flavor, you'll find it on a podcast.
Nice. So we were talking before we started recording, we were talking about, you know, marketing and the way that businesses approach marketing and how they try to generate leads, how they try to generate, you know, requests for their services or their business. What should every business be doing when it comes to marketing?
Wow, that's a big question. I mean, there's so much that they could be doing, but honestly, don't spend $1. So let's start there. Don't spend a dime, invest anything into marketing, not the marketing agency, not the freelancer that you got on Fiverr. And after spending $100, you're like, I can't believe my business is not generating $1 million for $20. Okay. We've all been there, you know, too good to be true. Like I tell my son, you know, look, if it's too good to be true, it's because it is. You know, it costs money to grow. So what you really want to do in marketing, Dana, number one, is look at your customer journey. Like for every step of that journey. Like now, of course, this advice won't apply to startups who are saying, I haven't generated $1 in revenue yet. I have a side hustle. I'm trying to make it work. So this doesn't apply to you. Now, if you've been in business for at least a few years and you have customers, it applies to you. Look at your customer base and go one by one and try to determine by looking at the data, what's making you successful, and then have a conversation with those customers. So you split them into 2 groups, customers and leads, because if I ask you the question, look, how many new sales did you make this month? And you say, oh, I brought on 10 new clients. My next question is, that's great. What closed those customers? You're going to tell me they needed, right time, price, whatever. And then I'm going to ask you, how many leads did you generate last month? And you're going to say, oh boy, let's say it was 100. So I closed 10%. So let's keep the math easy here. So I closed 10 and 100 came in. I'm going to ask you what happened with the 90. And we're going to start to break it down and go, okay, maybe half of those were word of mouth. The other half came from, you know, my website and email and whatnot. And we start to try to break it down and figure out, why is it that you're not closing more leads? I got to tell you, no matter how big the business, no matter how long you've been in business, there are always opportunities to increase sales conversion from that lead. You have money sitting on the table, but because you're not talking, but you say all of us, including me, including my company, this is an ongoing optimization strategy that never ends, right? It's not like a one and done. I did an audit, we're good to go. No, you come back and you do it over and over and over. Every quarter, we do it for our company, the entire funnel from the website to the conversations, and you ask those customers, especially the ones who didn't go with us, why did you not choose? Like, why not us? And you start to find out why. And most people are, most business owners will say, oh, it's because I was too expensive. They didn't like us, or, the timing was wrong, the sales, whatever the case is. You have money sitting on the table and you don't know why they're not closing. It's your job to figure it out. Once you have figured that out, so we still haven't spent $1 in marketing on Google or Facebook or marketers, then you could say, now I'm ready to build a strategy because I've collected enough information about what's working and what's not working. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're constantly, it's not a one-time deal to figure out why someone said no. It's a constant evaluation of the feedback that you're getting from your customers and those leads that didn't become customers.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is absolutely exhausting. You got to stay on top of it. And then you've got to apply what you learn and say, okay, so they're telling me that they don't like the payment link I send them. Let's say you're selling a service, and every time you do a contract, maybe the contract is an e-signature. They got to go there and then they got to fill out something to log into your system. But then the payment is redirected somewhere else. Just every little touch point, you start to find out and go, oh my God, I thought it was great that I just gave them a payment link. Meanwhile, they're telling me, no, we don't like that. I like to just set up ACH and do reoccurring or whatever the case is.
Yeah, it's creating those little pain points in the customer experience that at the end of the day add up to them not wanting to take that next step.
Yeah, imagine, Dana, imagine if by focusing on your current customers and improving lead conversion, current lead flow, imagine if you could increase 5% close rate without spending $1 in marketing. But you don't have to imagine, because that is typically the case. When I bring on clients to Predict, our lead gen company, the conversation is not your budget. It's not how much you want to spend. It's what are your business goals? It's a business goals conversation. What are your strategic initiatives? What lines of businesses do you want to expand? What's working? What's not? What have you done in the past? These are all questions. And then from there, I'm going to say, okay, now we're going to do a discovery session, which means we're going to secret shop you every which way. And we're going to tell you where there are leaks in your bucket. I call it the leaky bucket. And they're like, oh, no, not us. We're great. We're great in marketing. We're great in sales. We're great in customer service. And then I'm like, after a month of doing this research and coming back with this report, they're like, oh, wow, we're not as good as we thought we were. And we're like, okay, let's fix all of this. And by the way, we're not the ones who fix all of this. So there's no charge there, right? There shouldn't be a charge. This is something that you fix internally. So get yourself, for the entrepreneurs listening to your show today here, Dana, you want to increase your business, get someone, doesn't have to be a marketer, someone who can help you improve your current operations, all of that first. And then you can say, okay, now I have enough intelligence to consider a budget for marketing.
So it's kind of a definition of the low hanging fruit. So some things that maybe could be quick fixes and they don't have to spend any more in marketing, just fixing some of the feedback that is causing some pain points for the customer experience.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
What are the sources of your research when you do this for a company? Where are you doing it through surveys? What's the best way that you're getting that information?
Yeah, sure. So that conversation is first looking at your customer database. I want to look at how well your teams take notes. Every business is different, obviously, right? Direct to consumer, B2B, B2C, it's all different CRMs. I have one business that we work with where most of their sales are done on Amazon. So if you really want to learn the customer relationship there, because it's owned by Amazon, so they're selling millions of dollars of products on Amazon, you're going to have to look at the reviews and the customer support tickets for shipping, receiving, and all of that. So if you read through all of those, you're going to find out very quickly what they're doing well, what they're not doing well. For a B2B company, it may be the CRM. I may go into their Zoho or their Salesforce and start to collect the data and ask you, who are your super fans, your big customers? And then who are the ones who've been with you the longest? Who are the ones that you have the best relationship and have referred business to you? That's so important, Dana. I mean, how powerful that, you have a segment of your customer base here that consistently promotes for you, basically sells for you. And then you have a whole other segment here that is like, no, I'm never going to get. Why? Maybe you haven't asked for it. That could be a reason. Or maybe you're in an industry where it's competitive, right? And so they're going to say, an example is attorneys, right? So for us at Legion, we work with attorneys, law offices. The law office is not going to go to their local law firm competitor. They're not going to go out to drinks and go, hey, you know who does really good lead gen? Predict, Alex, those guys are good. He's never going to do that. Because if he refers them to me, I'm going to generate leads for them. They're competing against each other. Not going to happen. So I need to know who I can ask referrals for and who not. Maybe it's in different markets, but it can't be competitive. But that's not always the case, right? If you reward people, like people who sell products, have a Shopify website, e-commerce, I'll ask the question, like, how do you reward your customers? Well, I don't know. I don't have any. Well, rewards programs work. So, but you have to do it. You have to test it. And so once they test it, they kind of, oh, wow. Services companies, they'll say, how do you nurture leads coming through your funnel? So once I capture that data and understand the customer base and all the demographic behaviors, interests, what makes them move, then I'm going to start to move to where else there may be lacking. And one place where so many businesses are lacking is in content. It's really hard to convince businesses to spend the time creating content like you are, like I am, right? Because you don't always see the return on investment. It's not super clear as to, is it making me money or not, right? If I have a podcast and I only have 20 downloads per episode, is it really making me money? I hear that from people. I'm like, okay, well, were the 20 people the right 20 people? Because if it was 20 people and 2 of them are big decision makers, and that decision maker is now convinced that you're the person, 20 downloads per episode is fantastic. So it's all relative, but you really have to inspect every aspect of that customer journey, the lead generation tactics that they're using, they're not, and then come back. And of course, along the way, you find so many things that are working. But typically those things that are working are relationship-based. They are word of mouth. They are networking in the community, right? These are the things that you can't do just by spending money. These owners have to get out there and use their voice to promote. So,
yeah, you touched on that a little bit, the importance of business relationships. I think it's probably underrated, and there's a lot that don't put the time in developing those relationships. I was talking to someone in sales, and they were talking about how, you have this new generation of salespeople coming in that are very tech savvy, can do anything you want digitally, right? Can do it quickly, but they may be missing that building relationships person to person and building those relationships with key decision makers. And it's almost interesting because now it's almost like the older generation of sales people, that's the gift that they're going to train these newer ones with, is that people relationship building skills, because it's so important. I'm sure you've found the same thing with your work.
I have, absolutely, Dana, but here's the pitfall. There are some foundational tactics that old school salespeople like myself, I've done door-to-door, I've done telemarketing, I've done it all, right? From the beginning of my career, I've always loved sales. No matter what business I'm in, I love getting out there and talking to the client. And there are some strategies that still work today, depending on the different generations. The key mistake, and I see this in the auto industry specifically, as we worked with a lot of dealerships, dealer networks. The older generation of sales guys, the top 5% guys, right? The guys who like are just have always crushed it. They'll sell like, 50 cars in a month. What they're looking to pass on to this new generation of the millennials and the Gen Z, so the Zennials is what we call them, right? Are, yes, some things are foundational. You're right. Nurturing relationships, really caring about solving problems. These are human to human behaviors and emotions that are important, right? But there are some other things that, I've talked to these old school sales guys, say, look, that was great in 1985 or 95. But if you sell to a Zennial, millennial, or Gen Z like that today, they're out. They're out. First of all, no offense, they know more about the car that you're trying to sell them than you do, because they have a little thing called a smartphone that can give them like every detail about the car. So you're trying to sell them on the feature, this and that. They're like, listen, I've already gone to YouTube. Okay. Like, let's not do the whole, like, I'm going to get the manager and let's see. They already went online and figured out what financing they need. So some of the tactics are old and really tired, to be honest, which is why when I talk to I lecture at a lot of colleges, Dana, to young people, I do ask a couple quick questions, like, what are the top apps on your phone, right? What do you want to be when you grow up? No, but I ask these questions. And one of the questions I've asked in the past is like, when you shop for big products, real estate, a car, a mortgage, how do you do that? Where do you go to first? And it's very different than that old school sales manager. It's very different, right? Which is why companies like Carvana is just exploding. Although they've laid off some people here because they feel a recession coming. So it's not fair. But really, I mean, I hear it. Actually, a cousin of mine who's a millennial, just 2 weeks ago, she posted this one thing. I think it was on Instagram, a little video that Carvana made for her about the car that she bought. Now, I wouldn't do that. Like, you buy a car and you post it online, but she did. But they make the video for you, and then you post it, and then they do like a congratulatory party type of thing. Guess what? That's what she wanted. She's like, I would never go in a dealership again. They brought me the car. I got to use it for a week, up to 400 miles. If I didn't like it, I could return it at no cost. And the financing, everything happened electronically. She did say, though, and I myself have already experienced this with Carvana, to give them as the example. If you call and talk to their customer care team, I must have had a 45-minute conversation when I was recently shopping for a truck, Dana. And I went down to the Ford dealership, and it was the worst experience I had. And this is a dealership that's been around here for like 50 years. I felt like when I walked in, I was just a number, right? These guys are just moving around. They're not. I said, what? Am I not important enough? Because maybe I'm not spending $100,000 on a truck. I'm looking for something on a budget, So I just, I think that both the young people today, and as well as us older guys, we have lots of great things to offer, but just keep in mind that in the next 10, 15, 20 years, the big spenders, decision makers are going to be the younger ones. So,
Absolutely. And I just wrote an article about my experience because I was looking around for a vehicle, and it was interesting because you get these leads, right? If you reach out and you contact any dealership. So I was looking for a particular truck. I reached out to a couple dealerships, went online, asked for, details and things like that. Well, then you get overwhelmed with all the contacts coming your way. Yes. Right. And they all, I went to the standpoint of, took pictures of my car because there was going to be a trade, took pictures of every angle. I must have sent 10 to 12 photos so that they could understand what my car was that was going to be a trade-in. And the thing that bugged me the most, to your point, this old school, is like on their website, they would have a link that would say, hey, value your trade, put it into your deal so you can do it. You value it, you go through what they are using to value the trade, Kelly Blue Book, whatever it is, you get a value, you apply it to the trade, you give them the pictures, and they come back with a different value than what you put in the deal. And I said, what is the point of you putting that in your website if it's not going to be the numbers you're going to use? Because if I'm coming from 4 hours away, I'm not going to come to your dealership, drive there to then sit there for 6 hours while we go back and forth and you go get the sales manager. So yeah, I think that's a great example of one industry that's just like, there are pockets of dealerships and pockets of companies like a Carvana. There's a couple that are springing up like Carvana, right? But there are still large portions of this old school mentality, get them in, and it's almost like wear them down by making them sit in the waiting room while you wait to get this deal hammered out. So yeah, that's always an interesting topic to talk about, used car sales and auto sales.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's another industry we've worked with for over a decade, construction, home improvement. Last year, or was it the year before? Because of COVID, the timeline is muddied here, but 2020. Yeah, so it was mid 2020. So 2 years ago, our water heater crapped out. We came back from vacation, water was gone. Okay, you start to look here, there, called 3, 4, 5 contractors. After having done that and asked a couple of neighbors for recommendations, and then you do the online thing and you look at their reviews, the same thing we all do. Of the four or five we ended up with, after looking at a bunch, after 4 or 5, we ended up with only one that could accommodate our big ask, Dana. You know what the big ask was? This was like really simple. The big ask. Look, you know what the model of the water heater is. Like, I'm telling you, I have a picture here. I'm telling you what it is. I just need to know, do you have it in stock? I'm not even asking you for a price, rebates, any of that. I just need to know, do you have it in stock? And only one company was willing to have that conversation and actually look into it. The other said, nope. Sorry, Alex, we got to come out and give you an estimate. Okay, well, I don't need you at my house right now. What I'm telling you is that my water heater crapped out. Do you have this in stock? Don't waste your time coming here when, well, I already know what you're going to do, right? I was in the construction industry for many years. I know what you're going to do. You're going to upsell me on some water heater that you think is like a rocket ship, which I don't need. Don't bother. My budget is this. I want the same freaking water heater that was here before. Do you have it or not? If you don't, it's okay. Now, again, so let's flip that. If those companies were calling me to do lead gen, I'd say, you don't need leads. You don't need leads. You need to meet the customers where they're asking you to be met. The question here, if I were doing an audit, right, this discovery that we do is, why are you not telling them whether you have it or not? Why are you spinning your wheels? If I called you because I said, look, I'm looking for bananas and you only sell apples, why are you going, let me come out to your house first. Or why don't you come over to our store and then we'll let you know if we have bananas, Dana. What? It's insane. Another thing, a couple of these wouldn't even exchange text messages with us. What I'm saying, my communication style, so I'm busy like everybody else, but I prefer just a quick communication on text. And this company went as far as saying, yes, no, we do everything via text, the payment via text, the contract, we send you the link via text. I said, what? And they didn't even have to come to my house. Not only did they tell me that they had it in stock, right? And when they could come, they didn't bother even having to come here first. They said, no. If you sign the contract and we get there, we're just going to install it. There's no need to come back and forth. It's a pretty straightforward home improvement project, right? So again, I think whether you're selling cars, you're selling roofing, whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, dentist, dentist, all these different types of businesses, we're all consumers, Dana. And that's what I tell our clients and any potential, or any business who's looking to grow. I said, you're a consumer. You wake up, you go to sleep all day, you're marketed to, and you're buying stuff. You're transacting all day. You go to the pump, you let go, everybody's in your pockets trying to take your money. That's what marketing is. So what do you like? What don't you like? Let's start there. And you start to make that list, you're going to realize that your business, and sometimes you yourself, the owner, you're doing some of those things. Fix it. Yeah. Then think about getting more leads. Because if you start to get more leads before you fix those issues, you're just going to make it worse, right?
Yeah. Better to be at a 30, 40% success rate and then get more leads than try to fix it when those leads start pouring in.
Yeah.
So obviously you've been very successful in your career, working with some of these top brands, doing marketing campaigns. You went out on your own. You've been successful doing this as well for your clients. Tell me about a time that what do you do when a marketing campaign doesn't work? You have all the data, you get everything together, you have a strategy for a marketing campaign, it gets deployed. What do you do when it doesn't work?
Well, all of them work for me, Dana. No, I'm kidding. It's the opposite. The truth is, most of them don't work in today's environment. That's the truth. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to say that, but that's the truth. And frankly, it's no different than entrepreneurship. It's no different than building a business in today's fast moving, all the changes that are happening, technology, innovation, disruption. I don't care where you are, what business you're in. You might think that your thing is so unique and it's the best. Someone can come in and just change that for you real quickly if you're not on top of it. So the marketing is really no different than the entrepreneurship. You said, well, Alex, you've been successful. Actually, I've had more failures for sure. And this is not unique to me as an entrepreneur. It's most. But if you're really going to be honest, for people who are thinking, should I enter the space of entrepreneurship? Should I leave my job or build a business? The truth is you'll experience more failures than you will success. Now, of course, the failures, you take it as a lesson and you don't cry over it. You just keep moving forward. And the reality is you only need a few on any given day, a few really good successes for you to keep moving up and up and up. But the mistakes are always going to be made. So that's, again, I've had some small and some really big failures, and those hurt both in marketing and entrepreneurship. But for those who are trying to figure out how they're going to do the lead gen and grow their business, you first have to have this testing and always willing to experiment mentality. You're almost like a scientist. And you need that kind of a marketer. Well, I don't care if you hire them, on Upwork, LinkedIn, wherever, an agency. You want to ask these questions. Are they the type of, marketing agency that is going to look at all the tech tools you're using? Are they willing to experiment, right? Are they going to be honest with you about the fact that the last 100 campaigns they did, only about 10, 15% of them actually really yielded really, big results? And the other ones were just kind of, they're okay. And some of them were a complete bust. Because if they tell you that, here's the other side of the coin, right, Dana? If I were to tell you that, you'd probably say, well, I don't want to work with you, Alex.
Right.
So we can't have this honest conversation because business owners and entrepreneurs aren't realistic about how this stuff works. Oh, no, yes. If you come to me, I'm just going to take you to the moon for $500 a month. No, not really. Not even for $5,000 a month or $50,000 or $100,000. It takes time. It's consistency. It takes work on your end, your part. So I'll tell you right now, you can come to me with a 6-figure budget per month. But if you're not willing to put in the work with us, with my team, let's say I signed eight employees, 8 of my employees to your account, and they're working at it, but you're not approving things, giving us feedback, it won't work. It won't work. And then when I tell you that, look, the problem is these salespeople are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. The problem is you have, really crappy reviews. Like, as I start to give you all this feedback, not because I'm like just trying to tell you what to do. It's kind of like, you have 3 kids, I have 4 kids. You know how it is. Always telling the kids, like, look, I don't tell you stuff because I'm just trying to bust your chops. You know, if I usually tell you something, it's because I think it's important and it's going to benefit you, definitely not doing it because it's a power grab, you know? And that's what it is. You know, I just try to tell those businesses. So if I can't have that honest conversation with you, and if I can't ask you up front that 5-10% of the budget needs to go to testing, and if I have to instead tell you, oh yeah, no, there's no testing, I have the blueprint and I know the algorithms, there's no testing, and I mean, come on, you know? So I'd rather just be upfront and tell you that's what it is. And then if you can't understand that, then of course, then you're not my client, and you're also not realistic. But just like how you and I were talking before the podcast, Dana, I mean, look, the idea that any marketer today, I don't care, you could pick the biggest guru that you know on LinkedIn, the idea that they know exactly how and when and if a click will lead to a sale every time, it doesn't exist. They would have to know exactly when the algorithms are changing, and they would have to know. Now, let's start with this. So maybe some of your listeners know or don't know. I'm not sure. All the paid ad platforms, two things exist that you and I don't control, and neither does all the marketing and agencies out there. Two things we don't control. We don't control the algorithm. Just don't. You can create content and do all of that, but you don't control the algorithm. So let's start there. So it might take 12, 18 months to rank on page one just for some piece of content, right? On the paid side, you also don't control that. Why? Because Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, all the platforms are based on an auction system. It's auction based in real time. So I could have a budget and I could be willing to pay $5 for a click, and it may not work because Dana is going after the same target audience with a different set of ads, but a bigger budget. And he's willing to pay more per click. And Google and Facebook and all the platforms are like, we don't care if Alex or Dana wins. We just know we need to make more money. So again, it gets back to this idea, and it's not trying to give the marketers an out. I just wish that more marketers had that honest conversation with clients. And then also that business owners and decision makers on the other side would go, hey guys, I get it. You're not in full control of this vehicle. So let's work together and then try to figure out where we can make it work. And you're not going to need to make it work every campaign 100% all the way. But if you're consistent over time, you will see those results. And at the end of the day, it'll be the return on marketing spend, not return on ad spend, return on marketing, which is the umbrella, right? So
you mentioned failure, and I'm with you. It seems like we're pretty similar in the fact that I don't like that term. I only think it's a failure, right? It's been said that it's not a failure if you learn from it. But so what were some of your biggest learning opportunities, as I put my quote fingers up there in air quotes?
Oh man. I mean, two that come to mind that were monumental, like they have like peaks there and they always scare me. They're like right here always. 2009, so the Great Recession. I was over leveraged millions of dollars. I mean, I had bought so many properties, even though my construction business was doing well. I set up another business in Brazil. I mean, I was, I thought I was like, just growing like crazy and nothing could stop me, and then, everything dried up, credit lines, you name it. So that's to say that moment is when I realized that my problem was that I was not focusing on what an old client of mine who was a banker, Kurt, said to me. Alex, it's great that you're growing and you're investing here, there, and the other, but like follow the money. Follow the money. I get it. You're passionate about so many things because you're a typical entrepreneur, but follow the money. And I didn't follow the money for years. I just kept going, take big risks, go here, go there. And then that was a big failure. And while it was some miscalculations on my, financial sort of triggers, at the end of the day, it had more to do with the fact that I couldn't focus. Okay. I always knew people on the customer end. Okay. Like I know how to treat a customer. I know how to compel them. I mean, all day, but that's different than knowing people in your organization, managing people, training people, being, building a culture, being inspirational, right? That I didn't probably learn until 2015 or 16, as my business was scaling again, the Predict, the lead gen business. And as it was scaling and I'm looking around, I've got 40 employees and no one is really excited to be there. And I'm like, oh my God. It's, at first, of course, it was their fault. Everybody, all these people, they're just not ambitious. You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't. I mean, I got a business coach again, and I came to that realization that I was the problem, right? Because I was managing in a style that was ridiculous, right? And so I took some time off. I got a lot of training on understanding people's emotional intelligence and cognitive abilities. And I got a bunch of SHRM certifications. Typically, I was in these classes with these HR people. They're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, you know what? I thought for like 15 years that I was a really great leader and I could train people. I think I was just getting lucky because in this business, even though it's growing, I can't seem to find people who are drinking my Kool-Aid, so to speak. Why not? What happened? But anyways, I had the wrong people on the bus, right? Just like the great Jim Collins book where he talks about get the right people on the bus, put them in the right seats. That's what the problem was, to begin with. I had the wrong people on the bus. And certainly I'm not sure the bus even had seats, And so, yeah, I mean, the focus thing and then really understanding people and the customer side is great. You can understand and grow your business, but understanding the people that are in your organization and caring about them and their development and investing time in them will pay dividends like so many times over. So.
No, that's really good. Speaking from a dad's perspective too, that's the one thing I tell. So I have two of my three daughters are teenagers and getting to that point where they're starting to make decisions, about what they're going to do for a living, those types of things. And I've constantly said to them, I've said, look, it's great to choose a path that you want to go. It's not necessarily the path you're going to stay on, but know this, that no matter what path you do, relationships and knowing how to build relationships will be the biggest key for whatever you do in your life. And it's so true. I mean, if you're going to run a business, you need to have great relationships and build those great relationships with the people in your company. You need to build those relationships with your customers, other businesses, your network, all of these things. There have been so many opportunities that have come my way just because of relationships that I've built with people, and relationships that at the time you didn't think that was necessary to build, but you treat people with respect and you build those relationships as just part of your DNA. And that comes back around all the time. And then you're able to do that for others as well that have built that relationship with you. So,
that's solid. I mean, I can definitely tell you, countless people who at the time where I was building the relationships, whether in the community or, through client relationships, employee relationships, where there was no expectation of what I wanted from them. Probably the greatest example I can give you, Dana, is a professor at Florida Atlantic University down in South Florida, Dr. Ann Root. I met her through a community event, like at a nonprofit. I was sitting on the board and she was in a committee. We got to talking. She says, why don't you come in and talk to my students? And one thing led to another. I started hiring a bunch of her students, her marketing students, as interns. And so she was happy about that. And then I got more speakers to come into her class. So she was happy about that. Had leaders from companies like Chewy and big companies down here in Florida. And so she was like, there's just no expectation. There was no transaction there. It was just, we meshed well, great connection. and I respected her, right? And she respected me. And this relationship now, I mean, we're going on probably 7 years, and we still are constantly doing or scratching each other's back, never for an exchange of money, because that's not the type of relationship. It's just a friendship. And so, but I lost count of the number of times that having her in my corner has really helped me in a lot of ways, and vice versa. She reached out to me recently and said, "Hey, I'm up for an award, professor of the year and whatnot." Great, here you go, letter of recommendation, which is interesting because 2 years ago I was bidding on an RFP, and I said, "Hey, Dr. Root, can you give me a letter of recommendation?" Sure, no problem, right? You got people who can vouch for you. So I so agree with you. So there's, I think, managing the relationships that are sort of like monetary value, your customers and people like that. But then there's the ones that are no expectation. And those are just authentic. And you, just like you said, you have no idea where it's going to go, but you're going to nurture it anyway. So that's solid advice for sure.
Yeah, very cool. So tell me real quick about your book. I love the title, by the way.
Oh yeah, I have one right back here. So if your viewers or listeners are watching, I mean, the idea is that if you build it, will they come? The golden path to lead generation success for your business. So, it's sort of the golden path, but the idea is that there's this maze that we're in, and there's a little shopping cart, which is your product.
I love that.
Yeah, you start here, the customer starts here, and you both are lost. And it kind of just feels that way because you are not doing that level of analysis that you and I talked about at the beginning of the podcast. Because there are plenty of examples, by the way, Dana, of big companies and small that are doing really well, are kind of like at 99%. No one will ever be at 100. Okay. I mean, even the Disneys of the world, the Patagonias, Nikes, I mean, all these great brands, they also make mistakes, right? But they understand the power of experimentation, which I talk about in the book. And in the book, I simply just give you systems of what made us successful over the last 12 years of the company, and the 24 plus million leads and counting that we've generated for all those businesses. But I also talk about some of the failures, what didn't work, and just giving people different systems that they can use, that you don't have to read it front to back. You can just pick a section and say, you know what? I've always wondered about this affiliate marketing thing. I wonder if that's an option. Great, go read that chapter. Or maybe you just haven't found success with email marketing, which everyone should be doing in a big way because it works. You just got to stay consistent. So you go find out in email marketing the things that you're doing, the ones that you're not. In a way, it's a guide, but I try to add some stories and some humor in there, stories about different accounts that we've worked on without telling you who they are. It's interesting, but I think ultimately it's, if you build it, they won't come. I mean, you could have the best product right now online and throw up a website. You have all the best intentions, you spend some money in marketing, and then it just doesn't move, because there's so much more at play that you have to think about, it might be that social media isn't your channel at all. I can't believe you're saying that. Mm-hmm. Well, yes, I mean, it might not be, depending on the type of business model that you're running. It may be that the best option for you is to grow by selling on Amazon, or not. It may be that you should be doing paid ads on Bing and not Google, because all your competitors are on Google, running ads. And there's this 25% of searchers who are on Bing, and you could be using Microsoft ads. So there's just lots of different channels. What I try to do is demystify some of those channels, like SEO and email marketing and affiliate marketing, and just kind of give you the basics of like, look, if you're going to make it work, this is what you need to do. And then I'm finishing to build out the course, really comprehensive course, probably about 15 hours of total material to go with the book, Dana, because what I realized, which is really funny here, there's an irony here, that after I wrote the book and got it out there, I came to the realization that the book by itself was not enough to really help people. Right. So it was funny because if you build it, will they come? And they came, but I didn't get the sort of the reaction that I thought I was going to get, which was like, yeah, wow, this is amazing. Well, no, not really. Here's your 5 reviews, Alex. You know? So I said, okay, well, what do I need to do? Like, what did you like or didn't like about it? I even had one person who bought the book and reached out to me to correct me on something. Oh man, how embarrassing. I'm a marketer. And I missed one thing, a small piece of data was wrong. But I, again, try to give all the sources and make sure that it's accurate, because you and I know, and everyone listening to your podcast knows, is that when you go on Google, when you go on Facebook, when you go to Wikipedia, pretty much most of what you're looking at is, I'm not going to say garbage content, but it's so subjective that you have to spend hours just reading one topic to make sure, like, who's right. Because like I tell my kids, and I'm sure you appreciate this, Dana, I tell my son, Luke, I said, look, you said that you read this here and it's accurate. Great. Who wrote it? Did you look up their profile? What's their credentials? And then you go find out that, oh, well, actually, this person doesn't even exist. And you're trusting their advice on whatever it is. Could be medical, it could be sports, could be whatever. It's just so much subjective stuff because there's an opportunity for people to make money. And a lot of these marketers, what they know is that if they can create, clickbait and drive traffic, they're going to make money by writing content. So in the book, I really spent a lot of time. I really spent like a year making sure that whatever you're going to read there is 100% accurate and not just my opinion,
Nice. All right. So the website is leadgenerationsuccess.biz. You can find out information about Alex and the great work he's doing. You can find out information about the book. You get a chance to have some free digital marketing tools to download to help you with some of the, it's a checklist to help you go through some of the things that you're using today. And then obviously is that the best way for them to contact you if they want to get more information about you and your company?
Yeah, I would just encourage, your listeners are here listening to the podcast. I would say, check out the podcast. Like you, I have a lot of great guests on there too. People who, I have a lot of marketers, by the way, which people say, wait, these are your competitors. I'm like, well, no, they all have a different angle, right? Something different to share with the community. So if you listen to the podcast, you're going to get a lot of different strategies, and mostly not from me, but from the guests who are sharing. So,
All right. And that's the Dad-Preneur podcast. So another area to get some good information for free on the podcast and all different angles of marketing. All right. So real quick, Alex, what's the next adventure that you're taking with your wife and your 4 kids? Oh,
man. Well, yeah, you and I were talking about that. The summer, I'm sure you guys are, every summer is exciting for anybody who has kids, and so for us this summer, we're doing a couple of different trips, taking our trailer. We have a small little RV. I wouldn't even call it an RV trailer. It's very small. It's enough for us to sleep. So we'll go up to New York, we'll go up to Virginia, up to the mountains. And we'll be out there for 3 or so weeks. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. I love doing the outdoor stuff. That's always fun, just disconnecting, because, being in an industry where we depend on internet and connectivity and being online all day, it's the best when you're just out there in nature and not thinking about all this stuff. And then you kind of come back refreshed and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go help some people build their businesses again. So it's going to be fun. How about you? Are you guys doing anything special this summer?
I think we're just some short weekend trips. I think we're going to go down to DC. My 5-year-old she just graduated kindergarten, and she was learning all about the monuments and things like that in DC. So we're going to go down there at night to see them all lit up and everything. So That'll be
nice.
cool. Other than that, we're just enjoying the summer. Like you said, it'll go by too quick, but going to have fun.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Alex. This has been great. Thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time. I really appreciate it. I feel like we could have kept talking for another couple of hours on a bunch of different stuff. So definitely won't be the last time that we'll connect and have contact. So, but I do appreciate your time, and thanks a lot for joining my podcast today.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on our journey to learn about various topics. If you'd like to get in touch with the Dad Who Knows Nothing, connect with him at the Dad Who Knows Nothing on TikTok and Instagram, or Dad Knows Zero on Twitter. If you have a moment and you like this episode, drop us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Have a great day and enjoy your journey through this game called life.